Hello again, this is part 3 of my series on assembling the printed circuit boards for a John Linsley-Hood K1450 preamplifier. This section is relating to fitting the transistors, but the very first thing I want to do is put some capacitors in. There are 6 0.1 microfarad capacitors in each board, and you'll see why I'm doing this in a minute. I'll just cut and solder those. Once these are in, we're going to start with the transistors. The original circuit used BC549 and BC559 transistors in most locations, pretty much everything except the very first input stage. The circuit board is designed to take those directly, but I normally use ZTX 851 and ZTX 951 instead. They're one of the best types of low noise transistor you can get at sensible prices. They're actually a miniature power transistor in a way. They're rated at 5 amps, but due to the oddity of the construction, they have very, very low noise. The original preamplifier design actually used 2 power transistors, BD438 and BD437, in input stage, and again the board will take those, or you can fit ZTX ones instead. That's the capacitors in place, the 6 0.1 microfarad or 100 nanofarad as you prefer. So I'm going to actually start fitting the transistors now. Most of the transistors are PNP, and there are some NPN. So there's 8 PNP transistors and 4 NPNs, plus the 2 in the front stage, the first stage, the front end, which are either the BDs or ZTXs. So those there. I'll start with the general PNP ones. Now, I have already been through these with a component tester and selected them, or weeded out the ones that are wildly low, different gains, either very high or very low. So these are all roughly 200 gain for the PNPs. The lead holes are the same as the holes, but if you're using ZTX rather than the BC types, the curved side of the transistor goes to the flat side of the print, whereas the TO92 BC transistors go in with the flat side as shown on the print. So the PNP ones are Q3, Q4, Q7, Q8, Q9, Q10, Q11, and Q12. The NPN ones are 5, 6, 13 and 14. Which again fit, if using the ZTX, curved side of the transistor to the flat side of the outline on the board. Again, I've pre-graded all the PNPs I have, sorry, the NPNs I have. These are all a gain of about 290. It's probably not extremely important, but I like to have approximately matched gains in the pairs locations, which there are several on the circuit. And I also put approximately matched ones in the complementary ones in the first stage. Now the trick with the capacitors. The transistors all need, whichever type you need, will need CT in a bit. If you put the capacitors in first, that gives a reference height. So when you just turn the board over and gently wobble it about to seat the transistors through the holes, you end up with them all nice even height. And they can be soldered. I still have to fit the two for the first stage, front end. But for those I've got some sorted separately that are a bit closer to the same gain. Not identical. It seems very difficult to get absolutely identical gains between PNP and NPN, even in the same family. And they're the most critical for noise, so I want to use ones I know have good noise figures. There are also two small voltage regulator ICs to fit at the top and bottom edges of the board, which get the same treatment as the transistors to set them in height, but they're stored separately, of course, so I'll get those after we've done with the transistors. Okay, that's all those soldered. So another advantage of the flush cut type cutters, you can trim leads after soldering without worrying about the shock as the lead breaks, damaging the joint, or leaving long ends due to the chamfers, the blade not being able to get very close. So that leaves a nice neat finish. Okay, the two front end transistors are on the list, Q1 and Q2. Again, I'm using a ZTX 851 for Q1, which is an NPN. Now the leads for this position, if you use these rather than the BD type, need a bit of pre-arrangement. Hold the transistor with the curved side to the left. The bottom lead needs bending to the right, the lead's away from you. The centre lead needs bending to the left. Then squeeze them so they're in line. That's Q1. I'll do the same with the PNP, which I've got a few selected. They've got a particularly good gain figure, which is a better match to the high gain NPNs. And this the same. Again, I'm holding it curved to the left, leads away. The bottom lead goes to the right, centre lead to go to the left, then squeeze the three together. Just adjust the spacing a bit. There are more photos and short audio samples of recordings made using some of these from LPs or vinyl if you prefer that, on the website, on my website with the other info. Right, that's the last two transistors. Just push them down the same as the others for an even height. Square them up for purely for appearance. And solder those. Right, that's the transistors in. Next is the 2 voltage regulators at the top and the bottom. I just have to sort out. A short break there once I find the right bits. Okay, back again, having found the correct box, and it's got the voltage regulators in it. I've got several boxes of parts for this these projects. That's the 7805. That is U1 on the board at the top centre. The 7905s or L05 is U2. It's a 79L05. That goes in there. And just press into height. That's not essential, I think it just makes the overall assembly look neater. And it gives a reasonable height without overbending the transistor legs. Okay, that's all the semiconductors in place. The next part will be the capacitors, which complete the assembly. If I get it the right way around. Okay, that's all resistors and all semiconductors, and the 0.1 capacitors use a height gauge. So continued in part 4, I believe it will be.